that's me. Okay. So we're just going to get this set up here. Boom. Hey, Dank Trooper, what's up, bro? Go ahead and request if you want to come speak, talking a little bit of science, a little bit of engineering, if anybody wants to. Also trying to figure out how to set up a YouTube stream. Come on now. Ah, there we go. Beautiful. In frame. So Gucci. Yeah. Get everything set up here. I don't know why, but I gotta make this perfect. It's not perfect. Whatever, it's close. There, that's the way it is. So I'm gonna go over. Oh, you got up here. What's up, bro? Yeah, they're a bunch of pricks. They rug pulled everybody. Should have seen it coming. It sucks, dude. I lost $2,000 on that because of my buddy's recommendation. Yeah, it's brutal. I don't know what else to say. I'm kind of depressed about it, to be honest. I thought maybe this guy was being legit and wanted to help out some folks, and with Tupac, you know, him kind of advertising it, it's like, damn, you fuckers really just sell out for anything, huh? Oh well, such is life. Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Dude makes AI videos for a living and feels the need to scam people. It's crazy. Whatever, you know, yeah, it is what it is. Well, there's this video here with Stan Meyer I was going to go over because for some reason that's been popping off on the internet, or Stan Meyer type videos, whatever you want to call it, you know what I'm talking about. People have been talking about it. Stephen Greer, Ashton posted something about it earlier today that was pretty close to Stanley Meyer's stuff. So there's this video I was going to go over. I'm trying to post it. I don't have a chat button on this space for some reason. Oh, here we go. There. And I'm also YouTube streaming for the first time, so this is a new experience for me. You may or may not hear my daughter not sleeping. She likes to bounce against the side of her crib for some reason and bounce on the couch. It's weird, but yeah. Anyways, are you familiar with Stan Meyer at all there, Dank Trooper? Take that as a oh, you dropped down. That's all good. Feel free if you guys want to, you know, chat, come on up, say something, request, no problem. I am going to go over this though, and we'll just take it from there afterwards. It shouldn't be too long. It's only 22 minutes. You can, I think I'm going to start at 6:32 and work from there. So.
Must be able to retrofit directly to existing energy-consuming devices like your car, or install the technology into a home, or apply that technology to industry. As an example of this form of development of technology, this is an example of a quenching circuit technology which has the ability to prevent anti-spark back into the system. This was developed in such a way that we now can comply with this existing law. Other examples of work and development, we had to develop our own electronic circuits designs capable of performing the function of the water fuel cell, and do it under extreme safety conditions where we have an automatic shutdown in the system.
Damn. It'll be quick.
The water fuel cell involves very high technology, but we have reduced it down to a very simple form. We had found out through the electrical polarization process that once you expose the water molecule to a very high pulse voltage frequency while restricting amp flow, the water molecule takes on an electrical charge which automatically squirts off the covalent bonding, and as a result...
So right now what Stanley Meyer's saying is once you subject a water molecule to a high voltage pulse and restrict amp flow by his circuit, which is basically two resonant coils that restrict amp flow because they keep it in that resonance of the coil, the magnetic field of the coil, that are both inductively and, how do I say this? They're inductively coupled to resonance, but it's a feedback type thing in radio circuits. So because of his circuit, amp flow is restricted, and he says in other videos, and I don't know if he says it in this one, that if your components will allow it, voltage will try to skyrocket towards infinity in his circuit and setup. But again, the battery requires the circuit, and the circuit requires the battery to run. So if your components won't allow it, nothing will run like Stanley Meyer intends. So, and that is the hydrogen fracturing process in a nutshell, but he's going to explain it better here.
We're now producing hydrogen gas from water economically, and therefore complying to NASA's first requirement to produce hydrogen and oxygen gas economically. By simply attenuating the high pulse frequency to a higher voltage level, we now could be able to control the production of the hydrogen gas on demand.
Like,
In order to restrict the amps and allow voltage to take over in a dead short condition, in order to perform the electrical polarization process, we had to develop a new patented electronic circuit, which we call a voltage intensifier circuit. This circuit allows amp restriction while attenuating the voltage potential in order to produce the hydrogen gas on demand.
Man, the stream is going so bad. I'm so not a freaking streamer, dude. Man.
I had to drop off too. I wasn't trying to drop down on you, dude, but yeah, it's okay.
Are you familiar with Stan Meyer?
Really, I mean, I know the whole, just the water fuel cell, the base idea, in the 70s there, and just the kind of the lore, in a really base way, but nothing too intrinsic, and it's just something that would be cool to get
Yeah, so on Amazon,
controversially too, and claim. I mean, I don't know. There's legacy of all of these inventors that potentially had devices that were suppressed,
Mm-hmm. The cool thing about Stan Meyer is the electrolysis process of separating hydrogen from water is such a vital process to all of the universe. Get that for a second, because hydrogen is like it's like 98% of the atomic makeup of the universe or something like that. Don't quote me on the percentage, but the electrolysis process is such a fundamental physics experiment in and of itself, because you've got two plates. This is the conventional electrolysis process right here. You got two plates, positive and negative. Oxygens will go to the positive plate, hydrogens will go to the negative plate, and you're separating hydrogen from oxygen. Conventional electrolysis is DC only. So you got your positive and your negative fields constantly. If you pulse those, you get a whole different makeup, because in regular DC electrolysis you get about 75% water steam, H2O steam, and about 25% HHO. So you're only getting about 25% efficiency. Whereas if you pulse DC electrolysis, you get about 99% HHO. So it's that alone is such an academic, blow up that if anybody were to do actual research on it, which people are, you can make major headway and commercial products and such like that. One of those is H2 Colby here on X. He's a buddy of mine, I guess I would say. I've talked to him a couple times. Badass fella. He's just done a TED Talk. I don't know if it's out or not, but, check it out if you can. Yeah. I think the stream is still up. I'm just going to check it quick. Then we get back to Stan Meyer. I'm sorry you guys can't hear it here on the X Space, but we'll just keep discussing it here afterwards. Because he not only had the water fuel cell, which was powering a car, so it was a water-powered car. He had other inventions, too, that were also extremely revolutionary, but suppressed. So. If you see, you can't see your screen right now unless you're on my stream, but this here is the water fuel cell in and of itself. It's 3 fuel cells on top of each other with a gas processor on top. I believe that's what that is. That might not be what that is. He had another part of the water fuel cell, which was called a gas processor, which was another electrode that would stimulate the gas molecules coming off of the electrolysis process. So you've got your hydrogen and oxygen coming out of the water bath. You can do an electrolysis process to that gas as well. And if you run that gas through an electrode, you're going to split it more. You're going to fracture the hydrogen out of the water molecule more. But if you pulse it with light also, so electricity and light, you're going to get a massive increase in efficiency. And that's what the gas processor did. I don't think that's what this is, but this is the stacked water fuel cell array. So it's it's stacked. So you got your water fuel cell, and you got plus another one, and it's efficiency times 3.
We now inject laser energy into the process in order to
energy.
Cause the water molecules in the atoms to go into a higher energy state, which actually aids the electrical polarization process. By subjecting the water molecule to the high pulse voltage frequency and attenuating the voltage amplitude now allows the water molecules to go into a state of ionization. This led to the development of the resonant cavity technology, which now gives us the ability to produce a very quantum leap in hydrogen gas production while we're keeping power input into a very minimal stage. We also found out that in our development that by simply staircasing or simply causing the resonant cavities to be stacked in a vertical array, the electrical ionized gases of one cavity enters into another cavity, which enters into another cavity to perform a compounding action that greatly enhanced the production of hydrogen gas on demand.
I don't know if you guys heard that, but he just said the electrolysis process goes into one cavity and then it impounds to another cavity and to another cavity, increasing the effectiveness of the process. So stacked arrays are the way to do things. Build on top of one another, just like Legos. So we're going to finish up here pretty quick. But that's the VIC control board. That's the gas processor right here. Those are LEDs wrapped around an electrode.
Gas that's being liberated from the water molecule through the resonant cavity technology now enters into what we call a fuel gas processor. The combustible gas ions are now subjected to a much higher pulse voltage frequency while being subjected to even a higher intensity of laser energy. This causes the combustible gas ions to go into a high energy state, causing electrons to be released from those combustible gas ions.
Going to a higher energy density or higher energetic state to release the combustible gas ions. That's what you're doing to the water. Now you could do this without separating the hydrogen exactly and just heat your water up real quick. Just boil it super efficiently, and that would give you a hot water heater for little to no power, which that alone would change the world. But we're not allowed to have nice things, so that didn't happen. Hydrogen fracturing process.
I've even been taught that that's just worthless, you know, as I've talked to engineers in.
What's that?
What's the point? Is my mic low right now? Sorry if it is.
Yeah, it keeps cutting out a little bit.
Here, maybe that's better for the time being.
There we go.
Sorry if it was bad. Yeah, I think I got a bad mic on that. This headset, but no, sorry about that. I was just saying that, you know, there's so much in our society too, where, you know, you'll talk to folks who will tell you that superheating gases in that fashion that you're just described is kind of not even worthwhile in and of itself. As I showed somebody the, you know, original peer-reviewed PDF that Malcolm Bendall submitted for the thunderstorm generator, and that was his response as a and not divulging past the point of his employ, but he works for Boeing of all people as an engineer. And it's one of those just reference back points where you just hear someone's opinion and you just have to kind of throw it out the window these days because, you know, from the Stanmeyer late 70s era through Pons Fleischman's, shaming, it's like the academia and educated side is just so that, somebody doesn't even have, they're not even impressed by, perpetual superheating gas chamber of that nature, it's really
Right.
wild.
Right. I
No big deal.
What were you say there?
Oh, it just was his exact response was he says, well, it just superheats gases. That's all, with the thunderstorm generator. And I was like, the plasmoid,
Yeah.
and all these things, because I was thinking of it in a way too, because it's analogous, obviously it's a stacked array that's feeding a light induction chamber of a type, but the plasmoid inducer, the little ball after the cavitation chamber that's in the setup there that is attached to the combustion engine in his design, it is somewhat analogous in a way. It's obviously not the clean option that Stanmeyer was shooting for, but it's this almost reversion of it through, a combustion engine attached on the back of it, which is what we all love, but yeah, if it's dismissed out the gate and maybe even sabotaged at the, the presentations of in America, how far, can those things get in the public eye if as far as academia, but yeah, it's an interesting analogy I was thinking of between the two,
Mm-hmm. It all
and
stems
just
from water.
and pulsing, and the tie of pulsing to that sort of, as I would think of it, a processional sort of um, stretching on the reference there, but there's a resonance rhythm that can be struck in every AC DC conversion current point that's almost similar to the solitonic spin that we know that we're learning more and more about together here, in the subatomic particle world, that is kind of all tied together on the same, I think, mathematics, as Nathaniel's been getting into and trying to really hone at 137 and just honing in on those numbers more, which is not my necessary approach with how I see this stuff or feel it or think it. But I don't know if you feel me on that point, but I think that it's an interesting aspect to hear that it's always a coefficient gain, an entropic gain through the loss and the pulse versus a sustained direct current, if that makes sense. It's again against the grain of what the average based conversation you would have with your engineer friend would be. If you go to school and
Mm-hmm.
know people who are in these jobs and take these projects and do these, things, and it's just, it's a particular way of looking at these things that is almost inverted to the way I see it or feel it, and have found a community with you all and how you all are breaking it down, if that
Well,
makes sense.
oh yeah, yeah, 100%. The thing is, so it's basically talking about how the second law doesn't apply to closed systems, and there are never ever any closed systems in the universe. So we could basically tap the universe for free energy, and that is imp- that that's a whole new science. Basically, implosion science is, from what I understand, the name or term to give it. And yeah, man, Joel Gacy, he's got incredible videos on how to make basically two copper coils give you an infinite amount of feedback and allow you to tap energy straight from the field. And that's also what you're doing with pulsing an electrode or a laser or anything. You're conditioning a state space to unleash or increase an effect on whatever material you're shooting for. But the pulsing method is the key to to do a thing, because there's a constant pressure of the universe on everything. It's called the ether. It's called capacitive coupling. It's called the quantum foam. Whatever you want to call it, it's there, and you can see this specifically when you fill up gas in your car, when it's a hot summer day and you see little ripples going down the road. That's what we would technically define the ether as. And they say they can't measure it, but there it is. The interference pattern in the Martin van Gruisnik experiment, that's a real thing. So
Yeah, the break in the occlusion zone, the Fata Morgana, as I love, man. Yeah, love it, dude. We love to see it. Yeah, But yeah, it's right there. It's in front of us. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to talk to Dan Winter, and I asked him why was Stargate soft disclosure, and he said the most perfect thing. He goes, let me make sure I'm looking to the camera here. He goes, soft disclosure, hard disclosure. What's the difference? What's the difference, huh? Well, good point, Dan.
No, I love that when I was listening when that happened that day, and I was like, yeah, man, that because I'm a big not just that film and everything, it hit when I was younger, man. I think if we're the same age range, you know what I mean, where it's like, and then you grow up with it, and I think that's his point, and that's the lacing sort of nature of mythology that always is gonna um be a part of this post-Grecian world that they've, illuminatied into our society, better or worse, But yeah, what's the difference, right? It's there. We all have it. There's so much there that we all already have. And yet, of course, we all feel very much not on the same page. But as a society, that's what I mean. But I mean, truly, it is all there when you see those films and you find out about some of these secret programs and the analogous sort of meanings. It's a bit much,
A bit much, to say the least. You start to think, oh my god, Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, all of them were real? Probably. Probably based on real events that, they just sloshed an egregore over and hoped that nobody would search deeper than the Stargate on Netflix, not Stargate from CIA. But yeah, the idea that we can impedance match to basically any source of light is what a Stargate is, and you don't need to necessarily be looking in the direction of whatever you're trying to teleport to, but if you look at something, that's how you know where you're going. And I mean that because what I mean by that is light is the thing to impedance match to. When you see these Stargates in Stargate, you're like, okay, let's just think. First off, we here are of the opinion that we live in an electrical universe. Consciousness, life is a fundamental constant that arises, and it does evolve over time, and it's probably been seeded here on Earth for billions of years and whatever. But we believe that anything is possible and we can engineer everything, so we believe Stargates. How Stargates would work, in my opinion, is by spinning a field, basically, through the gravitational constant, which is Planck, and sending a signal to another spot on that massive amplitude wave. So it's the lowest frequency wave in the universe, but it's also the most massive amplitude you could ever imagine. It's everywhere all at once throughout our observable universe, and you can impedance match that by the light it gives off in certain areas. You do that by spinning a centripetal field inside of a capacitor, basically, and create this distortion, the space warp, this twist, this Mobius strip, this whatever you want to call it, and literally open up a gateway into wherever you're going. And that's how I think Stargates would work. But yeah, that's a little bit off the topic of Stan Meyer, but we're here to have fun, right? Yeah. I don't know. How old are you, bro? I'm 24, gonna be 25 next year. 10-4. Well then, I think what we'll do is we'll keep moving with the Stan Meyer thing. See what's up.
Not like this. Sorry. Yeah, dude, I last heard 24, and I am actually a little bit older. I'm 38 myself.
Hey.
Yeah. But I was right that age when that movie came out originally, and it was like there's so much. I think I said this on a space or something, the other day or something somewhere. But yeah, it's like. It's as much accuracy in that as there is in your second grade, third grade era, as it was around the same time for me, just coincidentally. Nat Geo produced documentaries about them pulling Tutankhamun's brain out his nose and stuff like that has factoid upon factoid of the culture that maybe unearthed or buried these technologies, depending on how you're looking at the story of it all. But yeah, it's definitely a suppression that started from that era, and films like that, clearly, as you look upon with review, are laced with those meaning, and those directors have. Stephen Greer just said it the other day that Roland Emmerich had a contact guy from the CIA for Stargate and Independence Day. So if there's handlers directly from the CIA and they don't even have like a facsimile third party Rand corporation or something like they did around the original time of the MJ-12, like influencing Gene Roddenberry doing Star Trek and stuff like that, then by the 90s, then what an interesting kind of point to point that's there, that as time goes on, with maybe more and more people uttering what they want to utter and documents proving what they want to prove, it paints a story that is interesting for sure. As I've kind of it's interesting, you know what I mean? It's like yeah, it definitely leaves you with a moment of pause to say, well, yeah, there's probably just a lot of lace meaning in Stargate. And as I think I said in that same space about the same topic, and like properties like Indiana Jones or something, even, where it's pulp and not what we think it is necessarily, but it might actually be quite close to it, and all of those films have pretty direct X-Files like real world meanings that are overlooked. And that property in and of itself, we already knew, as I just mentioned, was already a disclosure. So yeah, we have a whole culture of this that maybe is coming to a head as well, because it's not just the capitalist system that's coming to some sort of a rounding conversion point or end point in its story, but it's the major media system that it's propped up for years too. So I'm interested to see like what supposedly there's like, yeah, some Michael Bay production about some UFOs this year, and the Steven Spielberg movie that the Chupacabras and folks keep always hyping and stuff. And it's like, who knows what that will be as a generation folds there too, kind of. I didn't finish it, but I thought that like Megalopolis was kind of interesting just on the outset of the idea. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but it's, and I don't know enough about it myself, but it's like, yeah, there's some billionaire that basically has, the possession of, uh, 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 time dilation sort of control device. I don't know, beyond that, and I'm not going to get into paraphrasing, fiction at this point, but it's like these things are all kind of like obviously lacing things there for us to read and see. Apple productions are ridiculous. Just getting into that point. I know we're really getting off the topic of Sam Meyer, but you know what I'm saying? It's like stuff that's really all there. Can't remember what this one Apple show was that I recommended on the MH370 Discord at one point a while back. But it was all about basically quantum physics, and it was kind of forgettable, not a very good like show itself. But the ideas they were pushing and some of the rants in it were at the time in 23, 24, whenever that was, kind of pushing that envelope, I would say, for, what even the dialogue was on, certain, actual physics and science circles, in the mainstream. So certain things like that are sometimes too far ahead to not notice, is all my point is. And Stargate's one of them, where it's like, that was in 93, I think it was the year, right? And um, there was a lot of things going on in that time frame that, involved just covering, just like laying cover for whatever it is that this was. Um, but yeah, Stephen Greer says they did 9/11 to lay cover. So, that was the pinnacle of that sort of statement. I think that, elections or somebody I heard on Nate's Space was like, I can't take him seriously. And I was like, you hear it, I get it. But it's like, maybe they did. I mean, maybe all of the, WND claims and anything like that were always just bullshit, and for all other archaeological repossessive reasons, But again, getting way off the topic. If you want to get back to where we were with Stan Meyer, dude.
No, no, dude, it's all good. I like what you said in terms of looking back in like Egypt and seeing crazy technology, and then also seeing Stargate and seeing how it's like too far ahead to it's too far ahead in technology to notice or even not notice, and it's just
It's like when you
crazy.
can tell that screenwriters are like playing around and having fun with ideas rather than just getting things right or wrong. We know when we see like a bad sci-fi that has
Well,
ill-fitted properties and you know what I mean, ill-proportioned expectations. But then you see 2001 or Blade Runner or the more, but then people I
yeah.
think look past those films like Stargate or something. But I've always contended that's one of those ones you should throw on the pile and consider for its scientific accuracy potentially in some weird
Oh
rendering
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. I think
I mean,
Stargate.
obviously it's pulp, but yeah.
Well, it is. Yeah, it's pulp there, but it's like Stargate is to physics as Eyes Wide Shut is to politics. I think that tracks. And just to finish what I was going to say earlier, the this electric universe physics, I believe, gives the gives a person the understanding that the ancient technology and the future technology are the same thing. And holy God, are we probably not only alone but super watched, and we're probably some kind of crop. I heard, just to add to the Stargate thing, I think Daniel Winter said Daniel Jackson from the series is based off of him, which, holy God, crazy. And it just adds to the one that, like you're saying, they're showing us, and sometimes it's in stupid movies like 2012, sometimes it's in incredible movies like, or TV shows like Stargate. So this group of people that have authority over Earth are straight up telling people what they're doing before they do it, but at the same time keeping the control structure in place and not allowing anything to es- reach escape velocity, it seems, or actually better the Earth. It's no mistake that Bill Gates gets to control, vaccine distributions and shit like that. I forget I'm on YouTube here. I should probably stop that if I'm gonna talk like that. Whatever. Crazy time to live, bro. I feel like it's all at our fingertips. I had I had the craziest experience with the pyramids, and almost nobody could understand unless I was talking to you and it happened when it happened. And I told you about it when it happened. But like, whenever the Napoleon movie came out, about a month before that, I had a dream that the pyramids, or there was something underneath the Sphinx, and then I found out that Napoleon went to Egypt, and I was like, oh my God, they probably stole a bunch of stuff from Egypt, and then sure enough, like a year after he comes back, there's this massive renaissance. And then the Napoleon movie comes out, and it turns out that, yeah, he probably looted underneath the Sphinx.
Well,
And
yeah,
then,
and that ties in with like the French Revolution and the Jacobins and the
mm-hmm.
creation of the Illuminati and everything that could connect back to the, yeah, King Solomon and temple and the designs and the mathematics and everything, they would have pulled from. Yeah, it's one of those direct points where underconsidered lootings and raids and um just conflict regions that spout like inter cultural transitions that you can't really account for, right, without knowing, because they're laid in secrecy. So
Oh
it's,
my God, could you imagine if they were public? Could
yeah,
you
and
imagine?
well, that's
Could you imagine if something
that's the
like the
nature of our time, right?
yeah, they can't
Getting to a
allow it.
head point of that, of some point, maybe we hope, right? Where it's I think it's a smaller goal than what they aimed for, which was their dominations and controls and conquer points. I think that's not what anyone here aims to. It's just to understand and better. And there's so many points of the story that one expounds upon, right, where it's like, yeah, that Iraq and 2005, like, who knows at what juncture points what artifacts were exchanged hands by that we just have no idea, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just gonna. I kind of got off on a rant there about Napoleon, but recently, like, I think I could pull up the DM, but about a month and a half ago, I got a DM from somebody saying, "Hey, I might need a buddy to hang out with in Giza when we crack this wide open," and it was a private study on some signals slash cavities possibly discovered underneath the pyramids. I'm like, what? No way! I had a dream about that with the Sphinx, which is what I was talking about earlier. So this guy sends me that, and then I meet another person weeks before the official announcement that tells me about this, because they actually drew up their own design on what the pyramids are actually doing as a ancient technology, and so they had access to inside info and then let me in on that too. And I'm like, I had two sources tell me about this signal slash cavity slash structure underneath the pyramid in Giza, and I'm just some guy. I had two people tell me about it before it was officially announced, and I'm just like, dog. There's no words to describe that, the crazy feeling that gives me. But
Yeah, precognition's in the matrix, dude. 100%. Whatever it is, synchronicity, whatever y'all are doing, pulling on, it's, everybody sharing that experiential moment of, shared knowledge and, understanding
it's bananas.
precognitively. Pretty cool.
It's cool to see people pop out of the woodwork and start saying the same things I've said, and like, I'm not original at all, not even close. It's everybody else, and we're all learning at the same time. So it's absolutely wild. I was wondering the other day, I really can't say that AI didn't have a role in me learning about some of this stuff, because it is just a better search engine. At least that's what I've used it for mainly. But in a weird sense, it's like, oh my God, who's really learning here? Is it me, or is it, or who really learned here? Was it me, or was it the AI? Um, it's just a tool at the end of the day, but it is odd because of how strong of a tool it is.
Yeah, like modern AGI is like helpful and questionable at the same time, and also like not really um confirmative of any actual conceptual or conscious bias. So, it's this tool that, you have to sort of utilize in the right ways. It's interesting what it can pull on, and it does bring up like pontificative sort of theoretical ideas that one might have about the scalar field and how it interacts with you after enough time, as a device, and in certain apps and algorithms that are tied to, mapping your habits and scrolls, and the way that the screen itself ocularly like perceives to your eye point with the RGB spectrum. I mean, it's always doing different new things. Tonight it with my partner's screen just started doing a rainbow around it, and we looked it up, and Apple just now is saying that that's just a pleasing aspect of the phone that they want to that it does sometimes. I can't remember what it like how it described it. I have to pull it up, and maybe if people are interested, but it's like this was like a new weird tonight is all with the Apple products, where it's there's like a rainbow band that just pops up on the new iPhone, on the new OS at times, and it goes all around the ring of the phone in a sort of kind of hypnotic way. It's really
Yeah.
so it's like these things, it's like they are connecting with us in cognitive bias ways, dopamine ways that, I always, am, of course, suspicious of, but also like succumbing to, because I'm just one, we all are just doing this. And, I use these things just the same as you're describing. And, they are really helpful tools. I mean, you get so much more done. This is the same revolution that happened when I learned Photoshop in the early 2000s. I taught Photoshop for, I mean, I did for 10 years. 10 years I taught it, and 20 years you use it as a program. And it's, I don't know how old it is as a program now, but it's wild how old and how long, you've been doing that. And it's the modern, replacement for celluloid, that was the world that you came out of still, as a millennial. And you're not even a Gen Xer in the sort of terming of what the world views you as. So as how you view, use these things and do them, just to be straight up with you. So it's interesting, like how we're put in that position always. If you don't jump on that train and use it, then you're definitely going to get left behind. That's exactly what happened with the digital medium in photographics, is what I'm referring to, in the early 2000s. So like why you wouldn't do that now in the concept and research region of just utilizing an AI, especially as like a Star Trek fan. Like fuck that, dude. Like of course I'm gonna talk to the machine and help it like diagnose my tree's arbory needs and stuff. You know what I mean? Like why wouldn't I? My trees will fucking die without that. Like otherwise, I mean, it's the same thing as what Wikipedia was in a better form
Yep.
15 years ago, but now it's just a whole mixed bag of things. And you can still get that with what AI you use or AGI you use, so I think, that's important, supporting, proper good ethics in that world that betters the, potential, future of what like the tech industry looks like, what controls those applications, because as of now, it's not in a good state, in my opinion, as far as ethics, but that's just like a personal subjective that, you can hold and try to, shape to the system. I think the main thing is, like rounding it back to the points that, like you were, trying to multiple times here, which is that, electric universe, we're all part of it. And, at the very least, educating and sharing this and, maybe getting people on the same page a little bit more to understand that it's tappable and utilizable, and it's not just, combustible resources that we have to use. That's the main first and foremost goal for me as a person, just because the manufactured scarcity is what, we all just want to see end, dude, at least if
Yeah.
you're in the West at this point, and you see that, and you can speak to that,
The planned obsolescence of everything, while also realizing how easy it is to make absolute abundance. Oh my god. It's too much to take in at once, and you can really only digest it in like small spurts of realizing just how backwards everything really is. Like just saying what I just said kind of made me try and digest the scale of it all, and it actually gave me a knot in my stomach because of how big it is. Dude, even recycling is fake, and that's not even that's not even, a major conspiracy. Everybody knows it basically, and
And when we know that there's
sucks.
a Wintex machine that could take care of the leftover refuse from any non-sorted like recyclable material, and they just didn't take patent into circulation and like mass application, because we all know why, because their landfills are more lucrative industry, lumber is a more lucrative industry, coal is a more lucrative industry, oil and gas, and what's even more lucrative than all those is the kleptocratic, fake, uh, covered industries that are baked into those industries, shell corps, other things that just aren't even real, that all of those institutions also inhabit if get into that. So it's just a good haven for criminality versus open sourced, easier, auditable business source schemes like, open-ended. You don't need to mine anything really when you talk about zero point energy
No,
topics.
not at all.
At a certain point, it gets to a very
You could
uh,
make a 0 point energy crucible.
yeah, and you could apply it in multiple different ways,
Yeah.
and and I think that that's the thing that is obviously anti-capitalist, and that's what's been, you know, mainly put in the box and suppressed about it all.
And that's what's
So
so easy to understand, but for some reason people just absolutely glaze over is that once you get this like I've talked to some pretty smart folks, we would say, and they're all like, "Well, I can't see how this would be covered up. It's probably not people getting killed. They probably just didn't have anything. They were wrong and they didn't get it right." It's like you really can't see that once you get like here's what's crazy. I was talking to Avi Loeb, and this will tie into what I'm saying here. I was talking to Avi Loeb, and he said that once you understand gravity, you can basically make everything. And I was like, dude, I just posted about that yesterday. And that's the thing. People don't understand that the reason to cover it up is once you can get to the state of making a little bit of gravity, once you can make elements from nothing or from other elements, once you can take water and some aluminum and make gold, holy hell, you don't need capitalism. You don't need anything. You become Jesus Christ, literally. You become the electric being you're meant to be. And, man, we could be living so different. I was helping my dad, he's a Army veteran, and he's kind of losing it. And well, I shouldn't say too much publicly. But today I was helping him clean up dog poop and cigarette butts, and I was like, man, I don't want this. This is not what I want. This not only should this heap of sewage and addiction not exist next to the house, and that's why we're cleaning it up, but I don't want to be the one to do it. This is like gross. We should have some kind of robot vacuum type Roomba for outside cleaning up dog poop. I mean, I guess I could make it, but I don't have the money for that. Yeah, it's frustrating because, like I said, you can't even comprehend the scale. Not all at once. You just have to sit in the suckage and let it surround you. Basically, don't try and be overcome by it, but try and see the light through it somehow. It's brutal these days. Just trying to think straight. Like I work 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, and it's in a metal fabrication shop. It's literally a headache factory. Like you couldn't probably get more of a like detrimental place to work
That
than there.
sucks, dude.
It's just
That
I
fucking
didn't know
sucks.
nothing. I went into fucking welding thinking it'd be the trades were the place to go. Whatever. It is what it is, and I'm complaining a lot. But there's so much
Well,
to look
no,
forward to.
it's like all the arts or something. I have plenty of friends who got into glass blowing. I'm sure that does not bode well over time.
Oh, it
I got
could.
out of doing darkroom chemistry stuff. But that's not that's volatile or virulent, you know? So, and I work in like just doing shipping these days, to be real with you. So, and anyone listening. So it's like, you know, it's like everybody does what they need to do to pay the bills in this economy right now in a lot of ways, no matter what their background is. Especially if you know, don't want to sacrifice yourself for a job, so to speak. So like, you know, you know, meaning working within the field maybe that you were even trained to work in, you know, and finding your way outside of it being the path that is healthier for you as a person is just, you know, something that I would recommend for anybody because there's nothing wrong with it if you can manage the day job, but you don't want to be sucking in fucking welded, you know,
Oh, dude, I inhale these fumes
yeah,
constantly.
that's what I'm saying. So
It's
it's
so
like
bad.
yeah, I'm sorry, dude. You
You
gotta get
gotta
out.
get out of
But I'm
there.
in a
What we're
warehouse.
working
I'm in a
on.
warehouse. It's not much, you know, there's just like, there's always going to be, being in any industrial shit house like that is going to be bad for your health. It's toxic, you know, chemicals on everything. And there's black, you know, sludge basically coming off of, you know, every bit of like dust on every product and you're breathing it in. I mean, even in the most minimal clean, we just ship like, you know, non-hazardous waste material, like type stuff too. So it's not even a very like dirty warehouse, but it's fucking disgusting, you know, and nobody abides by OSHA in this country anymore at all. They don't even know what the word means or it's like a thing, you know, it's just like, so yeah, I feel you as all.
Yeah, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot to look forward to. I do think med beds basically exist these days. I'm not gonna say that you know they can heal anybody perfectly, but if they ever were to exist, I think I can understand how and where they are being manufactured currently. It's crazy. I used to think astrology, the like the signs and all that were complete bullshit, but they're not complete bullshit. It's it's a if you want to think about it, it's a gravitational effect, but it's not. It's the thing is gravity is misunderstood, and the name is useful, but it's not a lone force. Gravity is a connective implosion of everything at once, and it can be self-structured in small atomic structures or massive macro stars. And the gravity that we have here on Earth is very special because of the 12 signs around our solar system and because of how our solar system is set up as well. It's a geometric array that actually, like, you may have heard Jupiter protects Earth from asteroids and stuff like that. Yeah, our whole solar system protects Earth. We are an incubator here on the planet, and it's very, very special, and it's a sad thing to see that the industrial plants that you and I work in, or warehouses, is the wrong way to do anything. You look at these ancient structures, you see they have massive pyramids and stuff, and you're like, oh my god, we couldn't make those today. They must have had a more advanced technology. They did, and probably a more advanced civilization that didn't require us to mine metal out of the earth. I mean, or that didn't require them to mine metal. It, I could go on for hours about this stuff. It is so frustrating to see. And the fact that fusion is sitting in the laps of everybody in this country, not just fusion, but free energy, abundance, and like I try to talk about it to some people and they're like, "Oh my god, you're an idiot, you're crazy." And then you try to talk about it to some other people and they're like, "You're wrong, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about." I listened to Joe Rogan once and I heard that Edward Witten was the smartest mathematician and all the physicists agreed because, you know, he won math awards. And these people actually say these things and it's like, brother, listen to yourself for a second. You're going off of what Joe Rogan told you. Whether it was him or otherwise, you're going off of this and you've done no other research and you think winning some math award that may or may not even exist is confirmation of being the smartest person on the planet. No, the people that give the awards are cocksuckers anyways. So who cares what they have to say? But yeah, the obfuscation, the smoke and mirrors, the central authority over the planet and not allowing us to get off the planet and actively destroying the incubator that is Earth. It's a sad thing to see. Very, very sad. It's like somebody's trying to blow up the solar system or something. Straight up. It's the electric universe gives you a lot of insights. And the first thing you need to know is that you think you're learning about the electric universe. Well, the electric universe is learning about you. Your DNA is the most powerful technology in the universe. And it's learning through you. You are a part of it. The consciousness is inherent and it's self-organizing and it's whatever. We can keep going. But technologies are the key to understanding all of this and tapping into natural technologies, not blowing up the earth or destroying it through sludge and toxins and all that. Like just using wood or natural materials is the way to go. Bamboo grows super fast. We can make airships out of bamboo or UFOs out of bamboo. Because guess what? UFOs are kind of simple. They don't require so many parts, and they don't require as many parts as even like a car or a modern car, because they just don't. And yeah, we could be living in a totally different world. But you know, it's kind of like, where do you go from there when you say something like that? We could be living in a totally different world. I mean, I could tell people how to go about this. I could plasma pill people, as I like to say. I could try to make my own stuff, which I'm doing. And, just be honest about it and just try to discover things for myself. I don't know. I don't want to die, but I don't know. I'm kind of getting sidetracked here. Dank Trooper or somebody else help me out here.
Well, you don't want to die, but it's just like, what are the things that you just, kind of got to choose for yourself. And everyone does at each point in time. I think I have friends who maybe would have made different choices, given different times, playing out for when they could have made those decisions. But that's here nor there, where they're at now in their jobs and stuff, and I feel for them, So all I know is that at the place where you're at, I can just only say, like, just, follow that feeling you've already been following. And I don't think it'll lead you astray. And I think, well, I think in years past, maybe, but I think,
That's what so this is what's crazy. Dan Winter says the purpose of humans is to find bliss.
yeah,
And
that's also what Joseph Campbell says,
Really?
Yeah. The hero's journey is all about the hero in the, mythic tale following their bliss, So the 12 steps and the, mapped out sort of more scholarly knowledge that side will offer, and the, collective subconscious or unconscious, whichever it is, I can't remember, is what I would say is the write-off for this conscious charge collapse aspect of thought that Winters and I know that you're getting into a lot these days. And I think that's the two sides of the coin there, as far as psychology or parapsychology and cosmology of the universe there. And I think they kind of do interlink, right? Yeah, because it is that same advice they're giving of following your bliss,
Mm-hmm.
And it's intrinsic to everything. And it's impossible, it seems, for anything to happen, in action without that, in either the physics or like Luke Skywalker's journey or something, if that makes sense, which is, both like narratively powerful and also,
Probably physically too.
Yeah, physically or mathematically too, in actual binary form, chaos, resulting in more entropy essentially in the end, if that makes sense.
But that's the thing, is it's not though. Implosion is the science we've been missing forever, and that entropy is not the dominant force in the universe. It's actually neg-entropy. The universe is self-organizing. And I love that you said that, because I think that's the key.
Exactly.
That's what the technology of DNA is. That's why the universe creates it and allows it to propagate, is because it is that like ordering force that will, you know, erupt in certain spots, boil off in certain spots of the universe, like on planet Earth, and then propagate the universe in certain areas and actually steer it and distribute it in certain areas that allow it to become literally more dense. And it seems like Larry Reed has this analogy of the universe as a Smith chart, an impedance chart, and that there's these like circular fields that are more dense and allow charge to flow around them more easily than other fields, and some are bigger than others. And if you look at a Smith chart and figure that out, you'll understand what I'm saying. But it's super cool because you can understand it as something emanating from over here, which is the Big Bang, the Planck, the recursive buzz from the source of the universe, basically. But you can also think of that as there's like a deep space feeding that, which is really weird to think about, because it's like, oh my god, what would deep space even be? It's hard to even. I don't think that's a very understood concept in even sci-fi, unless I'm not exactly super well read. And
Well, I feel
sci-fi
like you
is
can
certainly good.
apply. I feel like you could apply a lot of different theories that we've considered, but step back in those thoughts of how you almost put it there visually and in your words, which is very Bob Greenier, I think, which is to view it as, you know, spatial gravity wells, or essentially um, not, implosions that are larger one than the other and ordered in a way that's, uh, I think, analogous to what we would see in whirlpools in small creeks or ponds, and the way that sub-level layers of those uh, topographies would feed one another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's basically what quantum physics says, is it's a field potential that makes a field potential gradient. So there's these Lagrangians and these Hamiltonians and whatever, these spaces that are either distributive, positively charged, or um, like they suck in and it's negatively charged.
And
So
it's still a point that, Lagrange points are known and agreed upon.
the real
And
things, yes.
yet that the superfluid theory of the universe is like a Salpais would throw out, still within the, same and similar institutions, let's say, of Space Force Naval, might not be, totally, bought into by the NASA's yet. But maybe next year they'll be there, because this year they're talking about the EM field, So it seems they're in order of following and piggybacking these sort of more Wild West independent X-spaced, scientific pushes, if that makes sense,
Oh yeah.
because there's a community that is shaping that, in my view. And I don't think all of these motions would be happening, so to speak, if it wasn't a feedback loop, so to speak. If that, I think that there is that going on.
Oh yeah, dude. I can I have successfully plasma pilled a few people. And one of those is the freaking Q Shaman guy, or what's his Q Shaman?
Yeah,
Is that
dude, the
it?
Jake guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I gave him a couple posts of mine, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I actually said here's a plasma pill, but I gave him a couple posts about plasma or anti-gravity or something. Then next week he starts posting about that, and I'm like, yes, gotcha. And then another guy, Brian Romelli, he's going off like crazy now. Got him. Then another guy, Beth Jezos, he's going off saying extropic is basically calculating space, time, or energy. Take your pick of three. Got him. So, what else was I gonna add to that? That the physics of like the Lagrangians and stuff, they can use these things because they understand that they exist, but they don't understand the underlying like quantum fluctuation reason as to why it is. And I'm not
Why
saying that.
torsion? Yeah, what torsion in gravity is? You
Yeah,
know, they
they
don't.
still
Yeah, the
think that
reason, the
there's.
feeding mechanism for gravity. You know.
Yeah, they still think that there's 4 different forces when we believe that there's one unified field out there and that it goes by many different names if you want to make it that, but it is what it is. And it's like if you're using a Lagrangian, you're using a Hamiltonian, you're using whatever you want to call it in mathematics, you're eating meat, but it's a different type of animal, or it's a different mammal, or you're having a fish and I'm eating a lamb or a steak or whatever. We're doing the same thing here, but we're not calling it the same terminology. And it's just insane because like you can go through these different physics papers on research.org and start reading about like waveguides and 0 point energy concepts and zitterbiwi gungs and pulse high frequency lasers and conjugate sound arrays and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, I just got to piece these couple terminologies together. Forget the math for a second. You piece these couple terminologies together and you start to reveal this underlying structure of like an electric universe. Basically, that's what I keep saying it is. That's what, thank God, Wallace Thornhill created, because it gives me something to look to. It's an electric universe. It's beautiful. It's understandable. Like, we can understand how bees fly, how salmon swim upstream, how ice floats on water. All this is understandable on a personal level. You don't have to be some quantum physicist that makes space drives. Now, you can get to that fairly easy too, actually. You can also understand how warp drives and teleportation work, but it requires a little bit extra. It's just, what do you want to do? What does your attention do? That's what I was going to add, is that the bliss thing is only what makes you happy and curious at the same time. You follow those two things, you're going to go and just be a saint. If you're happy and curious all the time, you're going to be like a child and you're just going to be in the zone constantly. Now, that's tough. I'm not going to say I'm there even a little bit most of the days. I mean, it's especially hard here in America, that seems, but that's the goal. Always happy, or chasing what makes you happy and curious at the same time. Bliss. And that's the goal of the universe, it seems. So, yeah, that was a rant. I'm going to go ahead and end the YouTube stream if anybody's watching. I think we did have one viewer, Quest on channel. Thanks for that, bro. That was sick. First YouTube stream. We didn't YouTube it at all. This was a X space mostly, but this is cool. I've got to figure out how to do this more, because I think, showing something on stream and then also having the X chat at the same time would be super cool. But
Yeah, thanks for letting me just crash in on it too, dude. Sorry if I didn't even know. I was just popping in.
no, I wasn't
So
making
it's very cool.
I wasn't making it like a planned event. I was just